Well, hey, this is Rhonda Simmons, and I am the founder and CEO of the Simmons Empowerment Foundation. And I'm so glad you're here with me for another episode of Empowered Heart to Heart. And this is a special episode. I am so excited. Yes, I know I say that every episode, but I really am today because this is our 50th episode of Empowered Heart to Heart podcast. And I am so excited about that. Woohoo! Woohoo! Yes, I am so thrilled and here today to celebrate with us. I have a special guest, and let me tell you, um, I'm just excited because we have a wonderful guest. She took time out of her busy schedule to spend the next few minutes with us, just having an empowered heart to heart chat. And so, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Felecia Sumner. And hi, Dr. Sumner, how are you?
Hi there, Rhonda. I'm great. I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am thrilled. And as I say in just about every episode, I'm excited.
Oh,
Thank you for joining us on our 50th podcast episode. I'm just beyond thrilled that you're here with me. And so, and you're here for a reason, because I saw your ad on Facebook, and I just as soon as I saw you, I'm like, I have to reach out to her, and we have to make a connection somehow. And here we are, and I'm so glad that you're here. And so, why don't you tell us about yourself and why you chose to be a medical doctor?
sure, sure. Thank you. Again, it's a pleasure to be on the podcast with you and looking forward to our chat. So, I'm Dr. Felecia Sumner. I am a family medicine physician, board certified, and also have additional extensive training in what's called functional medicine. We are located right outside of Philly in a town called Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. I'm a wife and a mother of three little kiddos, all three little girls. And we own a direct primary care practice in the area, which is a bit more of an individualized, personalized, and comprehensive approach to healthcare that you might not get with the regular traditional insurance based system. And I went into medicine because I always had a passion to care for people. If I can recall correctly, my parents said I wanted to be a doctor from the time I was 3 years old. I stuck to that dream. And there were little curves here and there where I said I'd end up on Broadway and things of that nature. But ultimately, I did reach that goal. And what really solidified that for me was dealing with health issues in my own family and seeing the importance of being a kind of provider that I know my own family and loved ones wanted and needed. So to be able to help fill that gap for individuals who frankly look like us in the African American community has always been a passion of mine. And my intention is to always be able to improve on those health outcomes, especially for our community.
That is fantastic. You know, we always hear the negative side of the statistics, how our Black and Brown populations top the charts, and in this negative category and that negative category. But I am thrilled to have you on the show and to know that you're representing us well, and you're giving our younger generation, not that you're old, but you're giving the generation behind us um, an example,
Yeah.
that it can be done. And I'm excited. I didn't, I think I heard you explain Synergize and how it was different. Can you explain a little bit more about what makes your practice different from the traditional practices that we may attend?
Yeah, sure. So, as mentioned, I am a part of or own a direct primary care practice. There are over close to at least 1,000 of practices like mine across the country. at least hundreds, I'll say that. And we operate outside of the traditional, what's called fee for service insurance based system, where a patient might show up at their doctor's office and get that, 5, maybe 10-minute visit if they're lucky with their doctor, and kind of feel like a number, a part of an assembly line in and out of the door. And, get their insurance gets billed for every kind of visit here and there. We're very much different in that our alignment and the things that incentivize these kind of practices are different. Our patients, they basically kind of like they pay a monthly membership, kind of how you would pay one to Netflix or whatever. We call ourselves the Netflix of healthcare. And you can access your doctor as little or as often as you want for that same monthly membership. So we have
Wow.
patients who show up once a year, show up 3 times in a week. It doesn't matter. They still pay the same fee. But it really is about that direct access from the patient to the physician. There's no kind of like middleman in between telling or incentivizing your doctor on how to give you care. Because sad to say, I've been in that system, and there are things that tend to incentivize the doctor to do something versus not do something, whether they want to or not. So our patients can call me, text me, send me a picture of their rash, get on a telemedicine visit, come in the office, whatever the case may be, all for that monthly fee. And it really helps to promote me as the physician, which has always been my primary priority, but even more so now, to promote me as the physician to always incentivize health and preventative care. Because guess what? Technically, I get paid the same whether you're here or not, right? So it would help me that you're healthy and never want to see me, as opposed to the insurance based system where your doctor only gets paid basically if you're sick or you come in. And then they
Right.
get paid more the sicker you are, the more medications they prescribe. So this is kind of the opposite of that world. And so far, I'm loving it. Our patients are loving it. And it's the way I would love for healthcare to be.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I'm all about being a disruptor. And I love that word because so many times there are traditions and trends that we just accept because that's all we know, that's all we've ever done. But when you encounter someone like yourself who's a disruptor to the trend, and you're reaping, good results in the lives and the health of your patients, that's just fantastic.
Thank
I'm
you.
thrilled. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And so one of the things, since we've already started talking about our Black and brown populations and um, how we're marginalized in so many different ways, I have found that African Americans are 30% more likely to die from heart disease than non Hispanic whites, according to the Heart Health Matters website. That was disturbing to me because I thought for sure I'm just as human as anybody else.
Hmm.
But yet we're 30% more likely. And this is a very important issue that impacts African Americans, especially. And so, what are some of the challenges that you see with us, specifically African Americans, and their heart health?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question, Rhonda, because that number, 30%, is such a disparate number. I mean, for us to have such a huge increased risk compared to other populations, and even when we account for socioeconomic changes and things of that nature, the numbers are still worse. Some of the things that definitely do play a role in that has to have something to do with access to care, right? So there are going to be some individuals who just can't see a doctor for whatever reasons. Either they're not insured or they don't have access to their primary or a cardiologist soon enough. And B, access to care could be they aren't comfortable with seeing a doctor that they can trust. And, distrust or mistrust in the healthcare system is an ongoing issue in the African American community, and rightfully so. So that has a huge role because heart disease is a silent killer. And so a lot of individuals will walk around with high blood pressure or inflammation or high cholesterol, etc., and not have any idea, because most of those things will not express any particular symptoms for any time, if not ever. And so these individuals can walk around being at huge risk and not know it because they're not seeing their doctors regularly. So that is a huge, huge part. And then another thing that I think we don't highlight enough is the lack of compassionate care or empathetic care for our Black and Brown communities. Unfortunately, a lot of times a Black or Brown individual might be able to show up to their doctor and express a concern, but because of a lack of cultural competence or just empathy altogether, then that individual unfortunately ends up being ignored and or their symptoms ignored, and then that can lead to poor outcomes as well.
Wow, wow, it's sad. It really is sad, because it seems like no matter how much education and medical advances we make as a country, it's not trickling down to us. There's a disconnect somewhere, and not only with African Americans, um, but one half of Black women in the United States have some form of cardiovascular disease, according to the American Heart Association. And Black women are more likely to die of heart disease and at younger ages than white women. That makes me really want to want to cry, because I've got some things going on, too, and I'm like, man, I'm a statistic. I don't want to be a statistic.
Yeah.
So, what could women of color do to improve our heart health overall?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna maybe share some things that are not as conventional, because frankly, you can Google this question and probably find all of the easy answers, like don't smoke, get exercise regularly, eat a heart healthy diet, all of which of those things are, of course, incredibly important. But there are things that I think that we don't realize play a huge role in our health outcomes, which is one, develop a trusting relationship with your physician. Because as African American women, it actually is the case that when a woman, for any woman, regardless of color, experiences a heart attack, the symptoms generally are not typical. In some cases, it won't manifest as routine, pressure in your chest and shortness of breath and, what we see generally on TV shows or movies. For women, it can just feel like heartburn, or you can maybe just be a little more lightheaded than usual, or even just more tired over the past couple of days. And that could, in fact, be a woman's sign or symptom of a heart attack. So, being able to have a trusting relationship with your healthcare provider, so that if you do notice that something is off kilter, you don't ignore it because you feel as though you might be ignored by your healthcare provider, I think really is a huge, huge deal. That you do have a relationship with your doctor or healthcare provider that you can call when something seems awry, and know that they are in your corner and able to, get the testing you need or send the referrals you need or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, we can go down the list of all the conventional stuff, which is, of course, if you're not eating the most heart healthy diet, which is usually, high in omega-3 fatty acids, so that good fatty fish and veggies and whole grains and things of that nature, then try your best to incorporate that into your diet. Trying to drink as much water as you can and exercise routinely, a good 30 minutes every at least 3 to 5 days a week. Those are all things that we do to help build up our heart muscle, which is all muscle. So just like we bulk ourselves up in the gym, we need to do the same thing to our heart muscle, and that comes with certain cardiovascular exercises. So hope that's helpful.
Yes, yes, it is. And I'm sure, Dr. Sumner, our viewers and our listeners, they want me to ask this question, uh, and so I heard you mention that you offer telehealth, and so do you have national patients or just local to your area?
Yeah, great question. So I do offer telemedicine, but it is in the states that I'm licensed, which are a couple of states. I won't go down the list right now, but if anyone is interested, feel free to visit our website, which I'm hoping, Rhonda, you can list in the comments of the podcast and video, etc. But I'm definitely willing and able to help the best I can, and if I cannot, then I'm happy to refer to someone who hopefully has a similar approach to me.
Okay. And Dr. Sumner, what is your website?
It's www.synergisedpc.com.
Okay. And if I did it right, let's see. I think I did. Did
You
I
got
get
it.
it? Did I spell it right?
You got it.
Okay. For those watching on YouTube, you can see it. I'll also put the link in the description so they can click on it. And I'll also put it in the comments because, oops, sorry, because it's so important that we take care of ourselves and connect with doctors who actually care. Because I'm tired of feeling like I'm going to a meat market. You know,
Mhm.
20 minutes is the standard length of time, and that's from intake and all. And so it's yeah, no,
Oh, yeah, yeah. We don't handle things quite that way, but it's because we know the necessity of not having people feel as though they weren't heard, because that one last question that a patient is supposed to ask could be the piece to the puzzle that I need as a provider to get you the answers you need. So in all honesty, our visits tend to last at least 30 to 40 minutes per patient. New patients might spend a good 90 minutes in the room with me, and that's not talking about filling out paperwork and getting roomed, etc. So we try our best to dive deep because it's necessary. No one is a number, and we attempt to, in the healthcare world, try to make it seem like everyone is made the same and reacts the same. And the fact of the matter is, even if my mom has high blood pressure or didn't have high blood pressure, it only plays a small role in what's going to happen to me because our social background, our economics, everything is so different.
yes, yes, absolutely. So, Dr. Sumner, as you may be aware, our mission here at the Simmons Empowerment Foundation is to serve unwed teen moms, regardless of their ethnicity, and to provide them with pre and postnatal health education, job skills training, and coaching. And so, how does pregnancy impact a young lady's heart?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've seen, unfortunately, the disparate numbers of Black and Brown pregnant mothers and potential for maternal morbidity and even mortality compared to other populations. And I have my own personal experiences with that. In general, there are, changes that occur for a woman who is pregnant that always need to be taken into account. And one is that the cardiac output, which is how much your blood is pumping, your heart rather is pumping blood through your body, tends to increase at least 30 to 50% within the first trimester. Meaning that what you're pumping through, it has to do what it needs to do to get blood to you and to baby. And because of that, there are increased risk for what's called cardiac arrhythmias, which are, the rhythm of the heart can go off kilter and potentially cause issues such as stroke or heart attack. And again, because your heart is a muscle, you're basically asking your heart to run a marathon or a triathlon when you're pregnant compared to regular life, right? Or at least a sprint, but it's even more than that because again, if your heart's a muscle and now we're asking it to pump 30 to 50% stronger and harder than it had been previously, you've got to have that heart ready and prepared. So, generally, when I speak with anyone who is expecting to have a child, we talk about what we can do to prepare for that. But sometimes, pregnancy happens unexpectedly. And there are still things that you can do to improve upon your heart health and allow that heart muscle to be strong. And those are the things that we talked about, such as routine exercise. You can do that in that first and second and even third trimester, the best you can tolerate it, and eating healthy for you and the baby. Trying to avoid the things that are going to weaken the heart muscle, like smoking, tobacco smoke exposure, etc. Those things are incredibly important during that time. But again, especially and honestly, for women who are dealing with pregnancy and they're unwed, I'm going to be frank, sad to say, sometimes you're marginalized in the healthcare community. And unfortunately, a healthcare provider might not take into account what you're saying as much as someone who they deem to be more credible. And so, because of that, it's even more important for that individual to speak up, to advocate for themselves, to be ready to say, no, something does not feel right. I'm not going to be ignored. And if you can't listen to me, then get me to someone who can. It's so incredibly important.
Yes, yes, it is. While you were talking, Dr. Sumner, I was thinking about that verse that says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Mm,
I don't want my own ignorance to be the death of me.
yes.
And that is why we've got to get that knowledge and then act upon it,
Mm.
because taking it in and doing nothing with it won't serve any purpose. Um, and so I appreciate the work that you're doing and making a difference in our community. And because it's so powerful and it's so needed. One of our key words to everything that we do is empowerment. And so, what does empowerment mean to you?
Yeah, thank you. That was a lovely verse and a good reminder for me too of why I do what I do. But yes, to answer your question, empowerment to me, it means, increased power, increased autonomy, the ability for someone to kind of take control of their own lives, to take control, to make decisions for themselves. And in the healthcare field, that really does mean advocating for myself, to be able to speak up, to make sure that the healthcare provider actually is hearing what I have to say. And I'm not just going with the wills and nils of everyone else who doesn't have a full understanding of my full picture and my full picture of my healthcare status.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to advocate for ourselves because no one else is going to do it. And we have to. And so, Dr. Sumner, if you had to send a message to your younger self, what would it be?
Well, I am, Rhonda, in my mid 30s now. And one of the things that I realized I didn't do enough of as I was younger is to speak up. And so that's been my mantra for this whole decade and probably moving forward for many, many decades to come is speak up. We have a power within us, many of us, that we don't tap into early enough when our gut or our spirit is telling us that something is off or that something is right when no one else is listening. It's important because our one voice in the midst of 1,000 dissenting voices could be what changes the world for the better. So I encourage and empower you as a younger individual to speak up.
Yes. 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 And that just falls right in line with everything that you've said about advocating for ourselves. I don't know if that's something that is distinctive to our ethnicity and not feeling like we can or should speak up for ourselves. I guess it all depends on our backgrounds and experiences. Because a lot of times uh, I find that we don't speak up until we have come to the end of our rope, so to speak.
Mm,
And now, we're coming out swinging, and that's all fine and good, but the, the speaking up needs to start a lot earlier, like you said,
yeah.
and that is wonderful. Um, and so you've already given us so many tips, so many things that we could do to help ourselves. We'll always need doctors. It's one of those professions that will not go away, and we appreciate you, uh, and especially for the level of care that you have, um, and being willing to practice outside of the box. Still ethically, but willing to just do what's best for your patients and not necessarily what's scripted. And I appreciate that. And I'm originally from Philadelphia, and
Wow.
so yeah, and so I'm like, man, I wish I was back there. Not really, but I wish I was at least there visiting, so I could come to your practice and just observe, even from the waiting room, just the whole atmosphere, because I just truly envision that it's a totally different kind of atmosphere and a peaceful atmosphere
Thank you.
where your
It is,
patients.
and I have to give credit to my husband with that though too. I mean, he partners with me as the office manager and the health consultant, and he does a wonderful job of making sure that the office is so incredibly inviting and people come in and comment how it feels like a spa atmosphere, and that's what we want. We don't want the bright white lights and the sign here, check in here kind of feeling, because
Yeah,
that in and of itself is going to raise anxiety and possibly blood pressure and lead to heart disease. So we'd
yeah.
prefer to have a patient feel welcomed and really, I really am grateful for the opportunity to be able to provide care in this way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we close, do you have any final words of encouragement, advice, warning that you want to share?
uh, not necessarily any warning per se, but definitely, to reiterate, speaking up and advocating for yourself is so incredibly important, and asking questions. And if you find that you're partnered with a healthcare provider that you're not comfortable asking those questions to, then it might be time to seek out the right fit for you, because it is so important to have that kind of trusting relationship with someone who frankly has your life, in their hands to some extent, meaning that they influence what can go on with the future of your health. Just like you can change options for your mechanic for your car, you should be able to change options for someone who is influencing your health outcomes. So definitely continue to speak up, ask the right questions, advocate for yourself. And I do want to mention, Rhonda, for those who don't have the opportunity for me to meet with you as a healthcare provider, I do have a book, and it's called The Doctor Will Hear You Now. And that's on Amazon. And I give a bunch of tips which had been procured from myself and a number of other Black physician colleagues, on tips of what to ask when you're in with your doctor and how to prepare for those visits so that you can, whether it's a 10-minute visit or an hour-long visit, be able to share the right questions and get what you need out of those visits with your physician.
Well, that is fantastic. I'm going to make sure that the link to your book is in the description around this video and in our podcast description, because we need this information. It's time for us to do something different. Like I said, I believe in being a disruptor. It's time to break the mold, break the traditions, and because not all traditions are good ones,
Mm,
and we these statistics are not good, and we can only change those statistics one person at a time. And if I can do my part and make sure my family is doing their part it'll begin to spread. And so I'm definitely going to put the link to your book in the chat, in the comments, in the descriptions, because we need that information. And so I really, really appreciate you being here with me today, Dr. Sumner. You've been wonderful. Thank you for joining us on our 50th episode of our podcast. And
Woohoo!
I am so excited about that because, a year ago, I had no idea how to do a podcast,
Yeah,
let alone uh, be this far into it. And so here we are. I was just following divine orders, and here we are. And I'm so glad to be able to share this episode with you. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you for being here today.
my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, if you'll hold on just for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a phenomenal interview. We've had several interviews over these 50 episodes. You can go back and scroll back through the podcast to see them, but this is the one you don't want to miss because this is the one that impacts your future. That is why we have our Dear Future Me, the coaching program, because we need to look beyond today. I know we can look at where we are right now, and if we look too long, we'll begin to feel like there's no hope. But there is hope if we will just set our eyes on our future selves. Who do we want to be 3 months, now? Make those goals and start working towards them. John Maxwell said that our success lies in our daily routines. What are we doing every day to reach whatever goals that we have? What are we doing every day to reach those health goals that Dr. Sumner talked about? This was very insightful. Don't let this just be another podcast episode where you listen to it, you felt good while you listened to it, and then you walk away and you forget about it. It's time to take action. Don't be a hearer only, but be a doer. Do the work, and let's become a better, healthier group of people that we can be. Spread the word, tell your family. It's time. It's high time to get healthy and take care of our bodies. So until the next time, be blessed, be encouraged, and most of all, be empowered. And we'll see you in episode 51.